to our communities and to this nation? What is the responsibility of the hip-hop art form? The artists, the record owners, the consumer. What is the responsibility? What is the shared responsibility in terms of to solve these problems that we all agree are problems in our community? What are the responsibilities? Mr. Banner, Mr. Cropper, you want to start?
Yes, I want to start by first of all saying all the philanthropy, all the things that I do in my neighborhood have nothing to do with David Banner as a rapper. Now, I represent the hip-hop nation, but I can honestly say this is my opinion and my opinion only. I don't feel that it's any rapper's responsibility to do anything. I think it is your responsibility as a man, not the type of rapper you are, the type of man you are. I was that type of man when I was hustling. I was that type of man when I was a teacher. You go back and you look at my history. I have always cared about poor people and children. I do what I do because I am that type of man. It has nothing to do with my job. It is amazing to me that the burdens of the world are placed on young black men who don't have the power to move anything. We don't put that same responsibility on our president. We don't put that same responsibility on our congressmen. We don't put that same responsibility on our parents. We talk about children. It's not really about rap music. It's about the fact that we're having children when we're not prepared to raise them. So we point the finger back at somebody else, America. And I don't want to go into the war, but America talks about weapons of mass destruction. But when I look at it, I was like, don't we have the most receipts? And don't we have weapons of mass destruction? If we want to talk about weapons of mass destruction, let's get rid of ours. So in me saying that, of course, it's not right. But the thing is, when it comes down to it, it's still just a song. Arnold Schwarzenegger can be the governor of California, but in his movie, he killed half of Cambodia. Then he went to Mars and blew up Mars, and then came back and killed, some preachers. But it's fine because he's a white man and he's an actor. So that's okay. Let him be the governor. That's just fine. But if Snoop Dogg talks about the things that he actually sees in his community, whether fact or fiction, let's see what we can do to him.
Mr.
Wow. Well, my thing is, I think it's a responsibility for us to preserve and prepare the future, which are our kids. We got to take a stand, and we can't just keep going where we at right now, not knowing that it is a tomorrow. I think as an artist, we only think about where we are now. We have no vision. And I think right now what we're seeing here today is we have to understand that knowledge is the most important thing and not education. I think that education, where we are, education is so important for our people, but once we apply the knowledge, it's like right now what David Banner is saying, I think once we get the knowledge, we really can take what we're doing to the next level, because I think we're all on the same mission. Because what he's saying, but we also have to think about what we are doing. And I think if we give our kids that vision, we can make that change. We got to stop saying, I can't be the person that I used to be back in the days. I got to grow. And I want to figure out some kind of way to teach these kids to grow and realize that if I say the bad word, I'm a parent, my kids are not going to say that, because I'm going to teach them to be better than me. And that's what I want to do. I want my kids to understand one thing in life. Yeah, your daddy could only be an inspiration. But with my son, Romeo, he's going to college. He never cussed. He never made any profanity. His TV show was on Nickelodeon. He could be better than me. And that's what I want to instill into my kids. And I also want to instill into them, let them know that you can live older than 25. You can live older than 30. We want to build this next generation to be better than us. And I think that's what Martin Luther King and all the other great people did for us. And I wanted to give that back to my kids and the people that's coming after me.
Dyson, I'm woefully over my time, and I'm going to now recognize.
Mr. Chairman, if there's any consolation to you, I'm going to have to leave for a 2 o'clock meeting, so I'll yield my time to you, sir.
Well, thank you. Well, Mr. Dyson, I wanted to thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. I think that, look, there's no essential contradiction between what David Banner is saying and what Percy Miller is saying, that Master P and David Banner are both talking about a trajectory of transformation and the possibility of change. And that is to say, people are constantly evolving as human beings. You can look at your own life, Mr. Rush, as an extraordinary freedom fighter from the very beginning. When you were part of the Black Panthers, you're part of an organization that was demonized, that was negatively portrayed. I'm writing now the new introduction to Huey Newton's Revolutionary Suicide volume. A lot of people put the brother down. People made mistakes, but essentially what the Black Panthers were arguing for was for the reorganization of the logic of American capitalism and the revolutionary transformation of the society. I see what you're doing today as an evolution along that same trajectory. As a minister and a member of Congress, you've taken the challenge and responsibility of evolving and changing and making that transformation more coherent morally than perhaps before, but also with that same impulse. I see what these young men are doing is extraordinary. I think artists do have a responsibility, as Mr. Banner said, as a human being, as a citizen of a global community. We all have a responsibility to do the right thing, and I think that doesn't mean that hip-hop should somehow be exonerated from that critique. Hip-hop has a huge amount of serious self-critical impulses going on within it, but if you don't listen to hip-hop, then you don't know that a lot of people who are so-called underground are mad at some of this commercial stuff. They're mad that they can't even be heard, and I think that's very important. Let me say one thing about the N-word here. I know Mr. Banner spoke about that. I think that we have to be complex about the N-word. It's not simply whether or not, and you made a brilliant and eloquent testimony that you didn't want to simply reproduce the pathology that was transmitted to you by a white supremacist overlord, and I think that's absolutely right. But words are complex and meanings are flexible, and I think when black people have appropriated a term of derision, the night he died, Martin Luther King Jr., according to the autobiography of Andrew Young, said to Mr. Young when he came into his room, because he had not seen Mr. Young the entire day, "Little nigga, where you been?" I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. was a self-hating, degrading black person. Now, he did not stand up in public and deploy that term because probably he would have found that offensive to the nth degree, and he understood the political context of language and how that could be interpreted. But I'm simply saying that the use of the N-word didn't begin with hip-hop. I heard ministers and preachers talk about it, bishops talk about it. I heard respected members of the community talk about it. There's a communication gap and a generational gap between young people who have circulated that term for global expression out of the political context and within which it emerged. So that means that some people in Japan who don't even understand that that was a term of derision are now using a term in a way that we find offensive because they didn't understand it. So all of us are responsible for being educated and enlightened and informed.
Thank you, Dr. Dyson. I must apologize because I didn't recognize my Republican ranking member, and now I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just thank the witnesses for coming, and I think it's very interesting and enlightening, I think, for everybody to hear your statements, and so I appreciate you taking the time. One of the questions that came up on this hearing when we talked to the executives, how much influence they have on you. Perhaps not the CEO of Warner or the CEO of some of these music companies, but has there been, in your relationship with them, have the industry executives ever asked you to alter your music or lyrics? And if so, if you can recollect under what circumstances? I'll start with you, Mr. Crump, and then Mr. Miller.
Actually, they have, and I personally have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I must add, but they send our music through all kind of boards, and we have to write out our lyrics and present our lyrics. And I can honestly say I'm one of the artists that probably has the worst potty mouth that anybody could ever see in the world, and I do, and I stand for that because the situations in which I rose out of reflect that. And I'm going to answer your question, but I want to make this statement before I forget it. If Congress wants to change hip-hop, they can start with Congress Heights. That's right down the block. If you want to see why we rap the way that we rap, go to Congress Heights. You don't even have to come to Mississippi. I asked you to come to Mississippi and spend 2 days. It's because it's funny. You guys make these different speeches, but when you go home to a nice house and some pretty nice kids who will probably get a job because of your influence. It's not the case where we're from. But to answer your question, yeah. Especially BET. What I can say, it's so hard to get my videos on BET. It's to the point now, I understand the disrespect of women, but it gets to the point where you can't even have a girl in the video no more. Yeah. Like they're going overboard to me in some cases.
So, Mr. Crump, you're saying